All right, welcome to the Junction, a segment here on This Week in Ardmore, where we make connections between Ardmorites. I'm Ardmore Leader News Director Michael Dean Smith, and joining us this week is Andrea Anderson. She's the Senior Vice President of Economic Development for the Ardmore Development Authority, and currently working on a community stakeholder survey. So, Andrea, thanks for joining us here on Ardmore Leader.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, I want to jump into this interview first by just asking one of the questions I had when I was first learning about the Development Authority and Ardmore in general is essentially, what is the Development Authority? And specifically, too, how does the Ardmore Development Authority differ from other organizations in the community, like the Chamber of Commerce or even like the Planning Commission?
Right. So the Ardmore Development Authority is a public trust of the city of Ardmore. But we are, think of us like a standalone agency, but we still work very closely with the city.
Okay.
We are supported by a 1/4-cent sales tax, so 1/4 of 1 penny of every piece of sales tax that you pay when you buy something within city limits of Ardmore comes to the Ardmore Development Authority for economic development for the city of Ardmore. Okay. So what that means, our goal, our task is really to help develop the industrial economic base of Ardmore. So think of like your Dollar General distribution center, your Best Buy, your Dot Foods, Valero, Michelin. We work with those guys to help them stay in Ardmore, to grow their business. And then we're also out looking at other companies who want to be in the area or who are looking for a new location. And we answer any questions that they possibly could ask about Ardmore and South Central Oklahoma.
Is it active, like, recruitment y'all are doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a lot of retention. I mean, we talk to our local companies, Dollar General, Dot Foods, all of the time. Valero, all of the time. Where we differ from the chamber, so we're actually, it gets a little bit confusing because we're actually housed in with the chamber. So the chamber is, think of it like the chamber is our admin management arm, if you will. So they take care of all the like HR, insurance, all that boring stuff that I don't want to deal with.
Know how that goes.
And then the chamber also really, they interact a lot with the same companies and businesses, but it's really more on an Ardmore specific level. So creating community networking events between businesses, helping to organize other things throughout the year. For example, we have the annual Chamber Gala coming up next week, where we're really honoring and interacting with our local businesses.
Okay.
Instead of them going out and recruiting or whatnot, that's really my function and my team's function.
Okay. And then once they're here, the chamber is going to kind of start taking over for some of the
chamber takes over a lot of that, like what I'll call like your day-to-day business stuff.
Yeah.
Your Chamber of Commerce-y stuff.
Yeah.
That you typically think of. That other stuff, the business recruitment, a lot of the interaction with the state on a state level, like with legislation, policy, whatnot, that's me.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's ours. That's our stuff. Think of chamber as really like your local touch point. And then just to confuse everybody a little bit more, if you see me out in town and you say, "Oh yeah, Andrea works for the chamber," I just nod and say yes.
You work closely enough with them.
Yeah, I am one of them. They are one of me. It's fine. I'll claim them and they claim me, just because, again, outside of our office, it's so, yes, I work for the chamber.
Well, actually, having a little bit of that background now, I think people may get a better idea of this community survey, this stakeholder survey that's going out. It's running now through February 21st, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Talk a little bit about that survey. How did this survey come to be? And also talk a little bit about the Vision First Advisors.
Yeah, so the survey is actually part of the new economic strategic plan that we're working on. So we have to kind of back up a little bit. Anybody in Ardmore knows that October 27th, 2023 was kind of a gut punch for our community. That was the day that Michelin announced they were winding down. Mm-hmm. Within about 2 weeks, our partners at the Oklahoma Department of Commerce and the Oklahoma Finance Authority developed this program called the Rapid Community Response Program. It is based off of existing an an existing incentive program that they have where you take a company's withholding taxes, you basically divert it into what we'll call like a special project fund instead of it going into the general fund where it can be used for whatever. It goes specifically to something for that company. So they worked closely with our team and Michelin Corporate out of Greenville, South Carolina. Almost got those states mixed up. Very different. Worked closely with their team and developed the Rapid Community Response Program. So starting November 1 of 2023, they began diverting Michelin withholding taxes into the Rapid Community Response Fund. Okay. So that created a $5 million. The goal then was to cap those proceeds at $5 million. Since then, because we've been collecting more and because the wind down has gone very differently than what I think really anybody was anticipating, including Michelin, we've changed the overall dollar amount to $7 million. Okay. But within that, one of the buckets of that original $5 million, there was a bucket of money, $250,000 of it was set aside for the Development Authority to do a new economic strategic plan.
Okay. So
it took us a little while because we really needed to figure out or get a better idea from Michelin what this whole process was going to look like. So late last summer, we issued an RFP. We had it out sorry, I talk in code sometimes.
I was going to say.
Was an RFP. So a request for proposal.
Okay.
Yeah. We issued that out nationwide to firms who could help us do a strategic plan, a new strategic plan. Okay. So we really wanted someone who was familiar with not just economic development, but really that site selection process, how to do a really good, meaty strategic plan, have action points, whatnot. There were a few other things that we had in there, but Vision First was the company we landed on. They have done work all over the country. The thing that we really liked about the Vision First team was that even though they are now on what we'll call the consultant side of economic development, everyone on their team was at one time either a community or a state economic developer.
Oh, so they have some background.
So
specific background, right?
Right. So,
okay.
In our industry, consultants always like to jokingly call themselves recovering economic developers. But, once you're one, you never are not an economic developer, no matter which side you're on. So we really liked that they understood this side of the equation. Their team, it's made up of Gray Swope, who has led state organizations throughout the South. He's led Florida. He's led Alabama. Nancy Blum Heights, who was here with Gray last week to do the our All Boards retreat. She actually was the lead communications person for the BP oil spill several years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they've got some really heavy hitters on this team.
Sure.
And they're good people. Sometimes consultants really like to make that they're consultants. But Gray and Nancy and the rest of their team, it's just like talking to you and I. They're just normal people. They get it. They understand it. So with that being said, we chose them back in, I don't know, it was early fall. All the dates are running together on me right now. But they really started work on the plan late November, early December.
Okay.
And that's when they started really doing a lot of that desktop research, the stuff you can get off of Google and all of the different databases that are available on everything that you can imagine. They came in last week and so they were in on Monday, drove Gray around. He got to see the community, our assets, took him to eat, because, that's really the most important part of anything.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
It's all about the coffee and the food. So we did that. On Tuesday, we set them up, I think, beginning at 9 o'clock in the morning until about 4:30 that afternoon or 5. Between Nancy and Gray, each of them had 6 or 8 interviews with local business leaders, local stakeholders. Everyone from Murray State to Southern Tech to bank presidents. Kevin Boatwright with the city of Ardmore talked to them. The next day, on Wednesday, after they were thoroughly tired on Tuesday, and we fed them again on Tuesday night.
Good.
Yeah. On Wednesday, we every 2 years, all of our organizations, so Chamber, Development Authority, Tourism Authority, we have what we call an all-board retreat. And it really helps us kind of align over the next 2 years.
Make sure everybody's on the same page.
Make sure everyone's on the same page
Sure.
and that everyone's kind of rowing their oar in the boat. You know, we don't need everybody doing the exact same thing, but everyone has a little part and a little piece of it. So we held our all-board retreat. They spent about half the morning with us. Then we did some other stuff after, you know, they had to go fly back to their home bases. But so that was kind of part 1 and 1.2, if you will, of the overall strategic plan process. So the community survey, which is what we're going to talk about today, long story short, or long, that's really the next phase. We just need to we need to hear from the community at large. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on housing? What are your thoughts on the next industry that we need to be looking at? You know, the thing that we got last week and that we've really learned over the last year, really, since the announcement came out, you know, the business community of Ardmore is very positive. We see this as a huge opportunity for us. But we need to know what people outside the business, you know, what does everyday Joe see? Sure. What are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are your thoughts on the next industry? You know, do we need to go recruit whatever, or do we need to be looking at something else?
Okay, so so now the question for Ardmorites is, what is the direction as far as industry is going to be going? Right. What type of industry do we want to see?
What do you want to see here? Because we now have I don't want to say we have a void, because Michelin's still going to be here. They still have the tire mixing operations. They're going to be here, again, for a bit.
Just not quite the same economic footprint we've been used to for however many decades at this point.
Yeah, just not that giant footprint that we were used to. So it's, again, what do you all want to see? And, you know, we all know that we're getting tons of commercial retail development coming in, but do we need to be looking at not just manufacturing? Do people want to see more jobs along, you know, the logistics side of industry, which, again, we're a great hub for that given our location. Do people want to see more like smaller, what we'll call professional services type places? Okay. Again, just to really give Vision First an idea of what the community is looking at, so that then they can give us some really concrete implementation strategies for once they give us this plan.
So we've got this community survey. It's on the website, ardmoredevelopment.com.
Correct.
I believe that's right.
Yes,
I didn't write that down.
That is right.
So we've got that running through February 21st. Once the Development Authority and Vision First kind of has some of this community response, what's going to be the steps after that? And when can the public really kind of start maybe seeing some more work on this new strategic plan?
Yeah. So once the survey link closes, Vision First is going to be doing their magic behind the scenes, gathering the data, interpreting it, all that fun stuff. We are expecting, I believe they're going to be coming in mid-March, or late March, I'm sorry, for the State of Economic Development Luncheon that we are holding on March 27th. They may be giving us a little bit of a peek at what they're finding, or at least updating us to that point. It's really going to depend on where we're at that point. We know that if it's not them, we have somebody else lined up who's also very heavily involved in this process, Matt Tarleton, who's working very closely with us on some other strategic planning, again, for our organizations on the whole. So we'll hear from that at the end of March. The overall plan should be done. We'll say the rough draft of it should be delivered to us late April, early May. Okay. Because technically the state of Oklahoma, the Department of Commerce, is paying for it through that Rapid Community Response Program. They have to have 30 days to review it, give their input, sign off, all of that fun stuff. So we expect to have something that the public can touch, feel, read by the end of May or early June at the latest. And at that time, we'll be blasting it out. We'll, love to come on and talk to you about it again, sharing it as much as we'll completely share everything and come up with some really actionable steps to go forward.
Anything else you'd like to tell anybody listening about the Development Authority or about this stakeholder survey in particular?
Not necessarily. I mean, I tell everyone, if you ever have a question, please feel free to call me or email me. I'm at the office. You can also message us through our Facebook page. It's just Ardmore Development Authority. I'm generally the one back there that answers questions. And if Gus, who's in our office, who does a lot of our marketing and media stuff, if he sees it, if something that he can't answer, he pings me on it so I know it's there, and we'll get you an answer. Happy to talk to anybody anytime, answer questions, dispel myths, whatever.
I like that last part.
Yeah. Hey, there's a lot that, I really wish people would call me and ask more questions.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Maybe we'll get some more of those questions and have you on again here on the Junction soon.
Absolutely. Would love to.
Awesome. We've got Andrea Anderson. She's a Senior Vice President of Economic Development for the Ardmore Development Authority. They've got that community stakeholder survey online right now through February 21st. You can find more information about it over on our website, ardmoreleader.com, or on the Development Authority's website, ardmoredevelopment.com. Andrea, thanks so much again for joining us here on the Junction.
Yeah, thanks for having me.